And we're back. What's going on, boys? It's Keg live on the Run Pure Bets YouTube channel, breaking down UFC 276. We'll go through the whole card like we do every week. See if we can find some spots. Try to make some money. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. Some spots. Whoa. Try to make some money. My voice is sexy, though. It fucks. All right. So, like the video. Subscribe to the channel. We don't ask much here. That's all we ask. Hit the like button. I mean, come on. First fight. Jessica Rose Clark, Julia Stoylerenko. So it's good to get this out of the way now. I've thought for a while now, we know MMA judging since COVID, especially in my opinion, has been really volatile. Some of the people are just really, really bad at their job. Awful. So it's been volatile in general, but it's been especially volatile in low-level women's MMA fights. And when I say low-level, I basically mean the entire women's roster, short of 8 fighters, maybe, right? But aside from that, women's MMA, which tends to be way closer than men's fights, right? Split decisions happen often. So for a while, I've thought that split decision props in women's MMA, especially over the last year and a half, is the way to go. So I did research. Since January 1st, which is about 7 months, right? I would have bet the split decision prop 37 times, not counting your Amanda Nunez's, your Shevchenko's, your Rose Namajunas', the real upper echelon of women's MMA. Throw those out. In 37 fights, I would have bet the split decision prop 37 times, right? Had we done that, we would have went 10-27. So usually, before people were started to get hip to it, you would see split decision props be around 5-1, maybe plus 475. But the sports books are starting to recognize just how often a women's fight is close and how often that the judging has been really, really bad. Okay? So now they're starting to move their prices down. Had I gone off the base price of plus 475 through the first 7 months of the year, split decision props would go 10-27. They'd be up about 21 units. Okay? Since the sports books are starting to change, I went back. I did it again. I used the base of around plus 375, which that's what we're seeing a lot of the time now. Plus 375, plus 400, sometimes plus 425. But I used plus 375 as a base, right? Even still, you would be up somewhere between 10 to 14 units if you decided in every fight that I don't think they're elite, I'm hitting a split decision prop. So that's what I've decided to do. That was eye-opening for me. If you watch me and you watch my live shows, we've been on the fence about doing this for a while because you can see a clear pattern, but now I'm on the pattern. So the auto bet for me in this fight is Stoylerenko Clark ends by split at plus 375. Okay. Now, as far as I think who wins the fight, I think it's pretty clear what Stoylerenko is going to do. She can't really win rounds on the feet. So she's probably going to do what she does, crash the pocket, work for takedowns, try to use that BJJ, and look for a submission. If she can't get the takedown, she'll gladly pull guard and invite you in to grappling situations, because she knows in the end there aren't many other paths to victory besides that for her. Now, Jessica Rose-Clark, definitely the better striker here. Is she good at striking? I'm not sure. I think that's still yet to be determined. But the boxing's looked better lately. I think she's strong for the division. The physicality advantage for sure will be with her. And her wrestling chops are okay, solid. They're solid for women's MMA, right? So I think she probably wins a decision as long as she doesn't get caught in a submission. Now, the line movement in the fight is a little weird. Stoylerenko opens offshore minus 205. Since then, Clark has taken money. Now Clark's minus 175. That's a big move. Big move. But you know the deal. It was always the split decision prop. It should have been always the split decision prop for 7 months now. But that's where I'm at. So give me the split decision there. Brad Tavares. Oh, before I go on, the boy, Stevie B. Love you, Boynton. Otter, what's up? Thomas, what's going on? Johnny, signed. What's going on, boys? All right, Brad Tavares against Dricus du Plessis. I'm not a fan of Brad Tavares. Gavin is. It might be an unpopular opinion. I'm just not a fan. I don't know. I'm getting tired of Brad Tavares. They call him a gatekeeper. Gatekeeper of what, man? Being ranked 14th? Okay, fine. He's a gatekeeper. Now, if we're going to break it down, the guy's got no power. 20 fights in the UFC. He's dropped somebody 3.5 times. That's bad, man. And 75% of those KOs were late in the fight, in the third round. So he's got pillow hands. That's okay. Some guys have pillow hands. I probably have pillow hands, but I don't fight in the UFC. So he's a decision machine. He relies on a stand-up striking game when he really should be wrestling pretty much all the time, because, you know, his power's just not there. His top control, I think, is solid. I think he can win minutes on the feet right up until he gets caught. On the flip side, I think that if you built the antithesis to what Brad Tavares is, that's du Plessis. He can meme KO anybody, like, every time he walks into the cage, right? So on top of that, he throws a lot of volume, like what I've seen there. So we know that the volume and the power will be there, right? On the ground, he can work for takedowns, and when that happens, he's probably going to hunt the sub once he gets you there. But one thing I'll say about Brad Tavares is he's got very good submission defense. So I'm not really worried about Brad Tavares getting subbed at all, right? The odds opened up offshore. Brad Tavares minus 130. And since then, du Plessis has taken money, which I think you would expect with that crazy opening number. Right now, the line sits around Dricus du Plessis minus 140. which is probably closer to what I thought the number should have been. Now, Tavares is a decision machine, but it was a bit concerning how little he threw his hands against Omari Akhmedov. I mean, he really didn't throw a ton of volume in that fight, and that was against the PFL version of Omari Akhmedov, not like the real UFC version, right? So you scratch your head on why the fight doesn't go the distance line is plus 105. And it's only because Brad Tavares is a decision machine. Considering how hard it is to tap Brad Tavares, if the fight ends inside the distance, chances are it's because of Dricus du Plessis, right? Probably because he got the KO. So I think that's probably a much better option at the price. You can get him by KO at around plus 190. Probably the direction that I would go. Although if you wanted to take the safe route, I think the fight doesn't go the distance as plus 105. But I think you're leaving a lot of value on the table because chances are, if it's going to happen, it's not going to be because of Brad Tavares. If he's shown us anything, he's shown us that. So my lean would be the Plessis by KO, in my opinion. I have not looked at the pricing yet, Steve. To be honest, I usually don't until I'm doing the show with DC and Title tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, I'll be live at 11 a.m. on the DFS side over at Run Pure Sports. Me, Title, DC, breaking down the fight from a betting and DFS perspective. This is only betting because that's what I do. But they'll be talking a ton of DFS tomorrow. Jessica I, Macy Barber. I loathe Jessica I love seeing her get punched in the face. Okay? She is so cringe. She is the female version of Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo, probably the cringiest guy in the history of the UFC. Jessica I is the female equivalent to that. I can't stand her. I can't wait to watch her get punched in the face. So let's start there. If she was as good as she thought she was, she'd be phenomenal. But she's not. So everybody gives her credit for a stand-up game. I don't see it. I think her striking looks okay, but she's still sub 36% in striking accuracy. That's not good. And her striking defense is atrocious. She has a devastating blind spot for the head kick KO. Valentina Shevchenko almost killed her in the cage, and other fighters have hurt her really badly with that head kick KO. It's a big liability when she's on the feet. On the ground, average at best, nothing special in terms of her offensive or defensive grappling, in my opinion. On the flip side, Macy Barber, I think Dana White put a ton of pressure on Macy Barber when she first entered the promotion. He basically said she's going to be the next superstar in women's MMA, and he set her up for failure from pressure alone. So I think that she came into the promotion. She wins 3 fights, right? Then she drops back-to-back fights going into that Miranda Maverick fight, and she really had to deliver in that fight, right? She didn't. She got the win in that fight, but a lot of people thought she lost to Miranda Maverick. I think she lost to Miranda Maverick, probably. So, I thought she did look better her last time out against Montana De La Rosa. But I don't know. I think the verdict is still out on Macy Barber. When she's at her best, she's using her physicality. her top control wrestling. She wants to get you down, beat you down, because despite the bill of goods that we were sold on her unbelievable stand-up game, it's average. I'm sorry. It's not that good. So the odds opened offshore. Barber was like minus 155. Since then, she's taken money. She's in that minus 275 range now. Is that right? Jesus Christ. Yeah, she's in that minus two. Is that right? I wrote a 5,000 word breakdown for 12 fights, and I'm asking myself if that's right. Yeah, it's right. Do I think that Barber should win the fight? Yeah, I guess. Would it shock me if Jessica I stole the fight? Not really. I'll pick Barber to get the win because her hype train, however many cars are left on the track, will be fully derailed. And she'll be the butt of a lot of jokes if she drops a fight to Jessica I, who's 1-4 in her last 5, looks like she's on her way out the door, isn't very good anymore. So she really needs this win bad. So I'm gonna pick her to win the fight, but this fight, more than the other female fight, I think has an excellent chance to end by split decision. The auto play, now that I'm going to run that system, is fight ends by split decision at plus 360. So that's the play for me in that Macy Barber fight. Uriah Hall, Andre Muniz. Yeah, Uriah Hall's been good to me, man. Faded him against Strickland. We cashed. Backed him against Silva, Weidman, Lewis. We cashed. So he's been good to me, but he's not that good, man. Never lived up to his potential when he was in his prime. Now he's 37, getting up in age, despite winning 4 of the last 5 fights. So the thing is, when people handicap MMA and they go and look at like the wins and the losses, but they don't study the tape, that's a problem, because when you look at his wins, you're like, oh, okay, 4 of the last 5. Yeah, okay. Well, Bevan Lewis, who could be one of the most talentless prospects in the history of the promotion, beat Uriah Hall in every minute of every round until he got knocked out in the 3rd. So yeah, it's a win for Uriah Hall, but is it really? He got worked over by a jobber for 13 minutes. So, you know, he used to be perceived as a lethal striker. Now he's a solid striker. Aside from that, decent takedowns, solid top control wrestling. Cardio's never really been an issue. Good there. His defensive striking isn't good. The footwork's all right, but I wish he moved his head more off the center line. He really doesn't. And the chin is a concern. He's been planted 4 times. So if you crack that button, you could definitely drop Uriah Hall. Andre Muniz is just a boa constrictor. One of the best on the planet right now in MMA jiu-jitsu, okay? He's going to come inside. He's going to work his takedown. And if he gets you to the ground, he's either going to choke the last breath out of your body, or he's going to tear your arm off your shoulder, and he's going to take it with him when he walks out the cage. That's Andre Muniz, period. Full stop, right? So Jacare Souza used to be the king of MMA BJJ, him and Damian Maia for a long time, right? the torch, I think, has been passed to a couple people now. And Andre Muniz is one of those people. So the odds open Muniz minus 225. Since then, he's taken about 70%, 70 cents worth of money. So the question is, can Andre Muniz get Uriah Hall to the ground? If he can, he's going to have Hall there playing defense probably for a while, because we know he has the skills to tap Uriah Hall out, no doubt, right? So if he doesn't tap Hall out, I don't think that necessarily mean that he can't win. He can control the fight on the ground and steal rounds. I think Uriah Hall is going to feel comfortable striking on the feet because if we're being honest, Uriah Hall is a better striker than Andre Muniz. That's just the fact. And when that happens and when Uriah Hall's starting to feel comfortable is probably when Andre Muniz is going to blast a double leg. And depending how many minutes are left in the round, it could be all over but the crying. He averages 4 takedowns per 15 minutes. So it's going to be Andre Muniz by submission for me in that minus 105, minus 120 range. And that's really it. Is it a concern that Andre Muniz has been knocked out 4 times himself? Maybe, but he hasn't been knocked out in the last 8 years. That's good enough for me. So aside from that, I'm done with this one. Jim Miller, Donald Cerrone. I almost went and taped the fight out until I stopped myself and said, what the fuck am I doing right now? It's Donald Cerrone and Jim Miller. If I don't know these two guys in 2022 and everything they're all about, shame on me, right? So it really doesn't matter for me anyway who wins the fight because I already knew that the angle that I'd be looking at, I don't want any part of backing either of these guys. Not with my money and not at this age. Donald Cerrone got knocked out by a shoulder in less than a minute. So, I mean, I haven't been able to back Donald Cerrone since that point on. Jim Miller was the only guy I thought about maybe because of the first round sub, but at the price, it's just not worth it. And in the end, this fight's probably going to be way, 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 way too volatile. So nobody knows if these guys have anything left in the tank past 5 minutes anymore. Yeah, lately Jim's been looking okay in the second round, I guess. But it's really hard to back either guy with the amount of miles that they have on their bodies. I just can't do it. So forget about the side. I can't make a pick in the fight because I don't know who's going to win the fight. So for me, it was betting on one of these guys to basically get folded like a lawn chair inside of 10 minutes. I think that's the only way that you can logically approach the fight. DK hung under 1.5 at plus 115, but I was waiting to see what FanDuel would hang the round 3 starts prop at. Let's check that now. Fight starts round 3, no, minus 132. So they're making you pay 45 cents for 2.5 minutes. So that's going to be a pass. So I think the only thing that you can bet at that point is the fight goes under 1.5 rounds at plus 115. That would be the direction that I would go. That said, am I going to bet this fight? Probably not. If full transparency, probably not. Brad Riddell, Jalen Turner. This fight has probably been the toughest fight to call for me on the card. I think both these guys are really, really good. Brad Riddell comes in off the knockout loss to our guy, Rafael Fiziev. We all love him. But he did go to war for 2.5 rounds before that happened. I like Brad Riddell. I think that he has really sharp pocket boxing. He's got punishing leg kicks. His cardio has looked good so far. He is, his fight IQ is good. He's smart enough to recognize that in a close round, he has to get a takedown late in the round to secure it. And he does that more times than not, right? But there are things not to like. He has taken a ton of damage for only fighting 12 times in his MMA career. And my biggest concern is how slow he starts. He's lost the first round on the judges' scorecards in 5 consecutive fights. That's a concern. Now, Jalen Turner, who I didn't really know what to make of coming in off the Contender Series and then his debut. But, man, like, after really, really digging deep on him, he might be my favorite fighter on the roster right now under the age of 27. I like him a lot. The kid is a freak show. He fights at 155 pounds, which is an absolute joke considering the fact that he should be a middleweight. He should be fighting at 185 pounds, 30 pounds heavier than what he makes weight for, right? He can kick you in the face from across the cage because he's a tree. He's got power. He's got speed. He's got striking accuracy. He's got the volume. He attempts 14 significant strikes per minute. Let that sink in. Almost 14 per minute. Now, he lands about 6 per minute. And on top of all that, he's a legitimate BJJ black belt that transitions incredibly well. He can get a submission off from anywhere. He's great off his back. So I just think that the kid is a stud. He's a stud. The odds open offshore, Turner minus 175. Currently sits at minus 150. So who wins the fight? Well, let's start here. If you want to bet Brad Riddell, history has shown us that you don't bet him before the fight starts, right? He's lost the first round in 5 straight fights. So if you know anything about live betting MMA, you know that if he loses the first round in this fight, he'll probably be a $4 dog, maybe higher, maybe, depending on how bad he loses it, going into the second round. So why would you bet him at plus 150 when chances are you're probably going to be able to get him at plus 450 or 400 at some point in the fight, right? Now, considering the way that Jalen Turner comes out of the gate, I don't expect that to change much here. So that would be my advice in terms of backing Brad Riddell. But that's if he gets to the second round, because he's incredibly hittable and he takes a ton of damage in the first round of fights. So I thought a lot about this fight. I'm going to pick Jalen Turner. The kid is growing on me by the day. I think that by the time he is 30, he has a chance to be very, very special in the UFC. And because of the amount of damage that that Brad Riddell has taken in some of these fights, I'm going to pick Turner to really put a stop to the hype train of Brad Riddell and give him his third knockout loss in a pretty young career. So I'll take Turner by KO at plus 230. But I do think that the submission is a possibility here. So if you want to be safer and you want to take Jalen Turner inside the distance at plus 150, I understand it. It's probably the better option. But this could be a meme KO. Like, just like Fiziev drop Riddell dead, where you don't even have a chance for a club and sub, that could definitely happen here. Definitely. As much as I like Brad Riddell. So I guess I'll go with the KO at plus 230. Ian Gary, Gabe Greene. I'm not a big Ian Gary guy. I'm very much looking forward to fading Ian Gary, right? Because he's really, really, really green. He's like a young kid in this sport. And one day he's going to fight the wrong underdog. And that underdog's going to make him look really bad. I'm pretty confident in that. The question for me is this the fight to fade Ian Gary? I don't know. Ian Gary is a big, tall, range striker. He's always on his motor. He's always moving around the cage. He's shown power when he fought in those smaller promotions, but we haven't really seen it yet in the UFC. He knows how to use his reach better than when he's striking in the pocket, for sure. And his takedown defense has been strong. And that's because he knows how to use his momentum. He knows how to use the momentum of a person against them, because he's incredibly skilled at judo. And that is the name of the game when it comes to judo. So all in all, I see the foundation for what Ian Gary can become. I just don't think he's there yet. I don't even think he's close to there yet. So Gabe Greene and Cody Safdie brought up a good point on his podcast. It looks like the UFC's been handpicking the exact type of opponents over and over again for Ian Gary. And like at first I was like, that's not true. But then like when you really start to take a look at it, Gabe Greene is similar to Darian Weeks and Jordan Williams. It's true. I mean, I can't deny that. But I think Gabe Greene's got very good stamina. He's durable. He throws a ton of volume. He cuts off the cage well. And he attacks the legs, just like Ian Gary does. Now, there are concerns. His defensive striking is a liability, and he has shown a propensity to really have a hard time with long fighters, especially long fighters that fight behind a solid jab. He has problems with that sometimes, and that's going to happen a lot here. So the question is it worth fading Ian Gary now? In my opinion, no. And for me, it's more about the price. Is Gabe Greene live to win the fight? Yes. Okay. But the last two fights against similar opponents, Ian Gary closed a $5 favorite and a $4 favorite. He opened up a minus 175 favorite, and he hasn't really moved much, right? Which means the comeback on the dog here is substantially underpriced compared to what it was in Ian Gary's last two opponents. So now, don't get me wrong. I know why, because like I said, Ian Gary looks like the foundation is there, but he's got a long way to go. So I understand why the price is coming down, but it just doesn't feel like the right time to fade him here. I think that we're going to have another opportunity at a much better price in the future to get the price that we want to fade Ian Gary. So that said, I'm certainly not going to back him here either. I'll probably avoid the fight altogether, but if I was looking to get involved, it would probably be the fight goes the distance because Gabe Greene's a tough out, and he's going to be chasing Ian Gary around the cage all night long, probably. And even if Ian Gary takes him to the ground, the minutes should start to tick off. So I will avoid this fight probably, but I don't mind the fight goes the distance at minus 105, minus 110. I don't mind that. Viral video. What's going on, bud? Viper, long time no see. Miss you, bro. WT, thank you for the kind words. Appreciate it, man. Okay. Robbie Lawler, Brian Barbarena. I can't go against Robbie Lawler here. I can't go against Robbie Lawler here because at one time, Robbie Lawler was a world-class striker. World-class. That in his prime would have slept Brian Barbarena in under a half round, probably. Brian Barbarena was never good, ever. He was never an elite striker, ever. And he's also old, man, just like Robbie. So if I'm going to back someone, I'm going to back the champ once upon a time. Now, Brian Barbarena almost lost to Brownie, Matt Brown. That's bad. And you can make the argument that he did lose to Matt Brown in that fight because I thought it was incredibly close. But, like, that just goes to show you where Brian Barbarena is at right now. 41-year-old Matt Brown almost beat him. And I just got to believe that Robbie Lawler has something left. Now, Barbarena opened a minus 150 favorite. That number was probably wrong. Even at this stage of both their careers, he should not be a favorite over Robbie Lawler. The odds have moved. Now it's basically a pick'em. That's probably where the line should be. Listen, I am not betting this fight. I can't do it, okay? But if you need action in this fight, in my opinion, I would be backing the guy that has world championship pedigree at minus 110 instead of Brian Barbarena. That's basically where I'm at in this fight. That said, I probably will have no part of this fight. All right, Pedro Munoz, Sean O'Malley. Cut and dry fight. Pedro Munoz is a very, very good striker, okay? He's also a very underrated submission grappler, but he almost never uses that skill set in the octagon. Why? I'm not sure. But he doesn't want to take you down. He prefers to just bang it out with you. And on top of that, he does have power. His cardio has been good, and he's incredibly durable. He could take a beating better than most men in the UFC, okay? Now, Sean O'Malley is one of the few hype trains that has actually lived up to the hype, okay? However, Sean O'Malley has come to a crossroad. He is now at a place where, in order to continue to prove that, he has to fight top-notch opponents. Now, you can make the argument that the Marlon Vera The Marlon Vera opponent was a top-notch opponent. True, he lost that fight. It was sketchy how he lost that fight, but he lost the fight, period. Right? Now, this is the first elite fighter that he's probably fought besides Marlon Vera. Now, is Sean O'Malley elite? Not yet. He hasn't even reached his prime yet. The kid is extremely talented. One of the better range strikers that I've seen at his age in 20 years. And if he can stay at range and he can control space, then he has an excellent chance to win almost every fight he's in. And that's just a fact. Now, the same could be said for this fight, right? So the odds opened offshore, O'Malley minus 250. Since then, let's see what DK has him at right now. Now he's minus 280. So about 30 cents a line movement towards O'Malley. So here's where I'm at. Pedro Munoz is at his best on the feet when he's in the fire, in the pocket, getting hit, and coming back with a three-piece on the counter. That is Pedro Munoz in a nutshell, okay? He is not a good range striker. Why? He's a little person. Now, we don't use the M word anymore, and that's fine. He's a little person. That's why. That's why he can't fight from range. He doesn't have the ability to. God said no, and he doesn't have the ability to, okay? So if that's the case, right, in a pay-per-view cage, O'Malley is going to be on his bike, and I don't think that Pedro Munoz could cut the cage off effectively enough to pin Sean O'Malley down in any corner, period, okay? So O'Malley's probably going to cruise to an easy decision win here. Why I say decision? Because Chris Matino basically survived 3 rounds with Sean O'Malley. My gut says that an incredibly durable Pedro Munoz should be able to do the same thing when I think his last 5 fights have been against former world champions. So, but here's the thing. There is a serious he can't ride the Matterhorn at Disneyland. oh no. I mean, so here's the thing. There is a path where Sean O'Malley gets hurt badly. Because if you know anything about Pedro Munoz and his little legs, they fucking hurt. He kicks hard, man. Like, devastatingly hard. Okay? So there's a real chance that this is Marlon Vera all over again, where O'Malley gets kicked in the shin, that nerve goes dead, kicked again, the foot's broken. Let's be honest. If there is one knock on Sean O'Malley, it's the fact that he has the same legs that Bill Walton does. Those are the legs he was given from God. Bill Walton's legs. So he is fragile, incredibly fragile. So, like, there's a Humpty Dumpty effect here. It could happen. So I looked for the doctor stoppage prop because I just wanted to see what it would be. And I couldn't find one. So the only way I think to bet the fight is You take Sean O'Malley by decision at plus 175. I think that's an auto play. And then you sprinkle hedge on the Munoz KO at 9-1. Because I do think that it's a lot more viable than people are giving it credit for. A lot more viable. Pedro Munoz is a motherfucker when it comes to leg kicks, man. So I do think that there is a path for that to happen. But the real play is Sean O'Malley by decision at plus 175. I don't think he finishes him. And I don't think that Pedro Munoz is going to be able to range strike with Sean O'Malley. But if you're going to bet that, you should throw a little bit of money on Munoz by knockout at 9-1. I will bet both of those. I will bet both of those. Ron War said if Neil Magny is viable, Pedro is extremely live. Well, Neil Magny wasn't viable, Ron. Neil Magny was a bet based on price. There's a difference between viability and value. Sean Strickland against Alex Pereira. Okay. So this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion. I understand why Alex Pereira has so much hype. He was a ridiculous kickboxer at Glory. Carolyn Bryant should be arrested? I don't know what that means, Eric, but I like it. I don't even know who that is. All right. So Alex Pereira, I understand that he's an incredible kickboxer. I understand that his claim to fame are the 2 wins over Izzy, right? He even knocked Izzy out. I understand that. And to a certain extent, you have to take, he's a world-class striker. There's no way around it. You have to take what he has done at Glory into consideration. And I understand that. But you also have to take into consideration that he's no longer at Glory. Now he's fighting a completely different sport where there are 500 more variables than a kickboxing match. Okay? And at a certain point, you also have to judge him on what you've seen in the cage as well. Okay? We already know he's a world-class striker. Aside from that, incredibly athletic. His takedown defense has been better than I thought it would be. But there are holes, obviously. He's a kickboxer. The cardio has looked good. The chin has looked great. And there are some concerns, though, right? Like the level of competition in his MMA career, at least, has been bad. Aside from his win over Bruno Silva. I get it. That's a solid win for sure. But aside from that win, he hasn't proven anything to me inside a cage, right? But we know there's no secret. We know what he is, but we're still learning what he is not. So on the flip side, what a run Sean Strickland's been on. The level of competition also has not been great for Sean, right? But he's lost 1 fight in 5 years. And I think that there's something to be said for that. Sean Strickland isn't great at anything. But he has looked phenomenal in the fights that he's been in the last 5 years. He's a solid striker. Is he a striker on the level of Alex Pereira? No. Basically, nobody is, right? He's nowhere near as technically sound. However, he's solid. He has sick cardio. Strickland's got just as crazy of a chin as Alex Pereira. He's got an underrated takedown game. And if he wants to get this fight to the ground and he doesn't get knocked out while he's attempting to do that going in, he's going to get this fight to the ground. If you could take Uriah Hall down 4 times and you can take just a wrestle grinder like fucking Court McGee down 3 or 4 times, you are going to be able to get a tall, lanky Alex Pereira to the ground if you want to, as long as you're not getting slept while you're coming in, right? Because that's big. That's a big concern for him in this fight. So the odds opened offshore, Strickland minus 175, which everybody knows was crazy down. Since then, it's slowly gone to about a pick 'em. This is a tough fight to call for me. I know that the Glory Hardos are, Alex Pereira season. I get it. I understand. But this is so tough for me because there is such a clear path of victory for Sean Strickland in this fight. There really is, man. If you told me that Sean Strickland was going to stand there for 3 rounds and he was going to strike with Alex Pereira, I would say Strickland either loses a dominant decision or he gets knocked out, right? But this isn't Glory. You can't tell me that. It's not that cut and dry. And I was talking to Gavin about this last night. 2 well-timed takedowns could win this fight for Sean Strickland. And I literally sent this text to Gavin word for word last night. If I was a coach for Sean Strickland, this would be my game plan. Make Alex Pereira work as hard as you can in round 1. Eliminate the space by grinding him up against the cage and using the cage control game in round 1. After that, an early takedown in round 2. He probably is on his back the remainder of the round. An early takedown in round 3. He's probably on his back for the remainder of the round if he hasn't already been submitted. And that's it. Dana White's master plan is done. There is no Pereira Adesanya 3. And Sean Strickland's fighting Israel Adesanya next. Like, it's that clear of a path. So I've heard this week, I've heard 2 of Sean Strickland's training partners and another fighter at his gym. So 3 people have gone on record by saying, I'll tell you right now, Sean Strickland's going to go in there, he's going to take him down, and he's going to submit him. That could definitely happen. Why can't that happen? Like, I get it. World-class striker, I get it. That could definitely happen, man. That's all I'm saying. Now, the big thing is, like, Sean Strickland is like an 18-year-old frat boy, like, fuck up. That clearly isn't that smart. Is he going to follow that game plan? That's the question. Is he smart enough to realize what he has to do, go in there and do it? I don't know. I'm going to pick him. I'm probably going to get trolled, but I'm going to pick him. So if you're betting the fight, I don't mind taking the shot on Strickland on the money line. I also don't mind taking the shot at DK on Strickland and the over 1.5 rounds at plus 140. Because I do think that that if he wins, it's going to be a decision from ground control, or he's going to submit him on the ground. And that would probably happen in the second or the third. That being said, if this stays on the feet, I fully expect Alex Pereira to either knock Sean Strickland out or just win a very dominant decision. Very dominant. And I watch as much Glory Kickboxing as anybody watching this show right now. I know what he's about. I've seen it. I saw it live while it was happening. But this is a different game. So I'm going to pick him. I don't feel great about it, but I'm going to pick him. All right, Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway. What can be said about these two guys that haven't already been said? This is going to be round 11 through 15 for these two guys, right? So we know what type of fighter Volk and Max are. In my opinion, this matchup should be 1-1. I thought Volkanovski won a clear-cut decision the first fight. I thought that Max won a very close decision in the second fight. But that's not the way it went. We know Volkanovski is up 2-0. Now, Dan Hardy, who is the best in the world in terms of breaking down a fight and tape study, brought up an interesting point when I watched his show. Max Holloway landed 450 significant strikes against Calvin Kattar. In 2 fights against Volkanovski, he landed 260 significant strikes combined in 10 rounds. Why? Because it's incredibly hard to hit Alexander Volkanovski. His footwork doesn't look like it's anything special, but it's extremely effective. Now, based on what I've read and at least, especially the press conference, and at least where it looks like Max Holloway's headspace is at, is he feels that he needs to finish the fight and not leave it up to the judges, because Max thinks he was robbed twice, not once, twice. So my gut says that for the first time in a really, really long time, I think Max Holloway is going to be pressing hard in this fight. Hard. I think in his mind, he's like, I'm going to get fucked by the judges if I don't finish this fight. Now, Holloway's striking, specifically his boxing in the pocket, is definitely better now than it was going into the first 2 fights. And normally when Max Holloway is doing his thing, he looks like he's gliding on air. He's like Prince. He's as smooth as silk, right? That's when he's performing at his peak. But I still think in this fight, he's going to be pressing for a finish, knowing his history in there with Volkanovski. So if we know anything about MMA, we know that if you press, you make mistakes. And if you're making mistakes, you're not performing at your optimal level. And in order for Max Holloway to beat Volkanovski, he needs to be optimal. Now, I think that, I really do think that it's going to cost him this fight. And it could very well cost him his consciousness in this fight. which I know is absurd to say about Max Holloway. I get it. I get it. The dude can't even spar anymore because of how much damage that he's taken, right? So now Alexander Volkanovski has never looked better, ever, than that Korean Zombie fight. And I think that this could be his best performance of the trilogy. I really do. Should Max press hard. So the odds open up Volkanovski minus 150. Since then, he's taken money. He's about a $2 favor right now. I can't go against Volkanovski, not after what he did to Zombie. I mean, he has literally never looked better in his whole career. So I just can't go against him here. I don't mind the money line at minus 200. I don't. And am I going to bet it? No. But I don't mind it. I think that you could throw him in a parlay with one other fighter to get the price down. As far as the method of victory props, I lean that it's going to be Volk by decision, but that Volkanovski inside the distance prop at plus 360 is intriguing, man. I'm telling you. It's an intriguing look to this fight, because I think that if he does what I think is going to happen, then I think that it could cost him bad. But what I did was pretty simple. I threw him in a parlay with Israel Adesanya, and it was minus 110. I think personally that's the best way to bet both those two fights, because I don't think either of them lose. We'll get to the next one. But yeah, I guess based on history, you have to say Volkanovski by decision at even money. I mean, you would be dumb at this point not to say that, right? I do think the split decision prop is live here if Max doesn't press, but I won't be going that way. If I make a bet on the fight, I already have, because I have that parlay at minus 110. If I make another bet on this fight, I'll probably take the chance on Volkanovski inside the distance at plus 360. I might take the chance. But I don't know. I might not. I already bet it. So, all right, Israel Adesanya, Jared Cannonier. I'm not going to sit here and intricately break down these two guys, because that is fucking nonsense. It's stupid. The bottom line is, at 185 pounds for the foreseeable future, there is nobody in the world that can beat Israel Adesanya without landing a fluky knockout punch or kick. With people are going to be like, Alex Pereira, bro. With maybe the exception of Alex Pereira. But personally, I think if that fight happens now, Adesanya just destroys him. Personally. That's my opinion. But aside from that, I think it's Marvin Vettori. He's the only one. If he can wrestle fuck Adesanya in a rematch, 3 out of 5 rounds, whenever it happens a couple years down the line, that's the only guy I think that even has a prayer. That's it. And that includes Jared Cannonier, because he's that much better than everybody else. He's that much better. So in saying that, can Jared Cannonier land that puncher's chance blow and knock Israel Adesanya out? Yeah, he could. That's the name of the game. It's fighting. That's what happens. But it's extraordinarily unlikely. Why? Because Israel Adesanya is extraordinary. Period. Full stop. The end. That's it. That's not a lazy take. That the body of work has now borne that out. And that's just a fact. So I'm not betting on Jared Cannonier. We know that. Especially when he got not. I mean, bro, if you can get dropped by Derek Brunson, stop. So the line opened offshore. Israel Adesanya minus 300. Minus 300. But to be fair, that price was low. Adesanya's probably closer to a $5 favorite now. I didn't tell you guys I moved to Tel Aviv. So yeah, so right now the line's closer to $5. The easy play, like I said, was Adesanya and Volkanovski together at minus 110. That I already bet that. Aside from that, though, if I was going to bet something else, the method of victory prop would be Adesanya by KO at plus 170. I think that from what I've seen on tape, Jared Cannonier has openings. I think if Izzy's going to have the opportunity to hit the button. Normally, I know you think he's going to win a boring clinic decision, but I don't know. I kind of think that he could finish Cannonier here. So that would probably be the way that I would go in terms of a method of victory prop. Probably him by knockout at plus 170. Or you can add him in another parlay. I also think that if you are looking for another parlay piece, the fight starts round 3 is not a bad one, because most of the time in an Israel Adesanya fight, it starts round 3. I think that even if he does finish Cannonier here, it's probably not going to be in the first 2 rounds. It's probably going to be the championship rounds, or at least 3, 4, or 5. So my lean would be Izzy by knockout at plus 170, or you could take the or I would throw. I don't know what the price is now. I'm falling apart on the last fight after an hour. I don't know what the price is now. That parlay is probably like minus 135 now, if I had to guess. Let me check. Let's see what that is now. Minus 120 right now at DK. Adesanya and Volk. I guess it's not bad. That's not bad. I guess. I literally feel like I moved to the Gaza Strip right now. That's where I feel like I'm filming from. Like I'm a CNN journalist. It's fireworks. They're going off like nuts. I forgot. Oh, yeah, 4th of July. Right. Forgot about that. Yeah, 4th of July. Yeah, so listen. That's 12 fights. That's the breakdown. I don't know how long this has been running. I would assume about an hour. Yeah, about an hour and 15. And that's it, boys. So we'll be live tomorrow at 11 o'clock on the DFS side. Me, Title, DC, breaking it down from a DFS and betting perspective. Sunday, Coop and I will be live on the bet side Sunday morning at 11 a.m. We'll be breaking down the Cup Series race at Road America. And then Sunday at 1 o'clock, we'll be on the DFS end, breaking the DFS and bets down over there with me, Coop, and JJ. And then as far as the live betting shows go, I'll be live tomorrow at 2:30 for the Xfinity race. Then I'll be live at 6 o'clock all night long for UFC 276. And then Sunday, we will be live for the Cup race. It was a good month of June on the live show. We made about 70 units probably in June in NASCAR. It was a good month for me on the spreadsheet in June, 23 and a half units. It's been a good 2-year run, man. 110 units on that spreadsheet for me. So I'm proud of that. I hope you guys come and hang out. Yeah, 70 units. I mean, it's what we do, Gav. You can't pretend that you don't hit 20 to 1, 15 to 1 every weekend. You could literally set your fucking clock to it. So, yeah. Let's make some money this weekend, boys. Why not us? That's what I say. Sportsbooks have enough money. Sure, the DraftKings stock price might be in the tank. Fuck them. Take it all. Why not us this weekend? Feels like a good time to make some money. Aside from that, I've got nothing. Go over to Run Pure Bets, get the package. It's $60 a month. If you're already a DFS member, it's an extra $20 for the add-on to the bet side. I mean, if we have anything left to prove after 2 years, I don't know what to tell you. Good luck this weekend. I hope you guys crush it. I hope your action runs pure. I'm out.